Hello. Well, they did it again. Wasn't exactly the prettiest one we've ever seen, but they did it again. There's just something about this team that's 10 wins in the playoffs now. Eight of them. They have been trailing at some point. Contrast that with the team on the other side. They have 8 wins in this playoffs. Zero of them have they come from behind. None. Golden Knights have eight times. 7 times the other team has scored first, and the Golden Knights have come back to win the game. That is ridiculous. At some point, you have to just throw your hands up and say, you know what? This might be the one, right? Like, I think we've started to figure that out over the course of the last couple of weeks here. But another one like today, this exactly furthermore shows that, like, this is something. This is something special. Like getting the overtime victories quickly. Chandler being the guy kind of making up for the penalties that he had earlier in the game. The play by Eichel in the middle to Marchessault, and you see like the mistakes that are happening on the other side, not to the Golden Knights. The mistakes that the Golden Knights are making, they're getting bailed out, right? Like they got the big time save by Aiden Hill. They get the opportunity on killing some of these penalties and dodging some of the bullets that they were able to. And today, like, I'm not going to sit here and say this was a terrible game. I understand that like the players didn't really love the game they played. I don't think that Cassidy loved the game they played as a whole. Certainly DeBoer felt okay about the way his team played. And yeah, like we've got 2 overtime victories. Like it may feel like this series is close, but to me, if that's the worst the Golden Knights are going to play, if that's a bad game for the Golden Knights, there's still so many parts of it that went right, that did things that are going to generate goals, are going to generate scoring chances, are going to keep Dallas away from scoring on the other end. That, like, again, I felt comfortable coming in. It's now 2-0. There's 2 overtime goals. I feel even more comfortable at this moment because it's happening in so many different ways. And today, to me, the story of this game, as much as yes, there was some shot suppression going on from Dallas. Yes, Vegas had a little bit of a hard time getting to the center of the ice until kind of the third period. And really the forecheck wasn't quite to the effectiveness or at least the speed of how effective it was last game. It was very effective quickly, and it was generating those turnovers and generating these plays right in front. And then they're winning some of these board battles in the defensive zone along the walls to kind of chip the puck out and get those opportunities going up. But to me, this game is a great example of Vegas really having a really fundamental understanding of what their opposition is trying to do. Like in this particular game, it was constant Dallas throwing pucks up the wall, trying to break up the wall. And Cassidy kind of answered it in the question that I asked in the postseason, which is basically they want to put the puck up the wall and then have a 2-on-1 and try to win and get it out that way. They weren't getting them. Vegas was outnumbering them. Vegas was even numbering them, whatever. The pucks were coming up the walls, and the Golden Knights were doing a really good job at the very least, at the absolute very least, of forcing the puck back down towards their goal or forcing it to come out without any possession. That's the biggest thing to me is that, yes, Vegas did not have their best shooting night. Vegas did not have their best night in the offensive zone when they did have the opportunities. There were a number of turnovers. They had a 3-on-1. They had a 2-on-1. They had some of these chances where they're walking out in front and they have these chances that are seemingly pretty dangerous. And they had certainly fewer of them than what we had seen in the past. Some of the better opportunities, Wob misses on the short-handed chance. You know, they weren't quite on net as well. The crispness in the passing wasn't quite there like it had been. Not terribly surprising for a noon start. But, like, if the fundamentals of the game are going to be there for Vegas, and it certainly was there in their forecheck, and to a degree, it improved as the game went on with their breakouts. I don't know what Dallas is going to be able to do to counter this team. The only thing they really have that's really all that dangerous, and they got one today, is that double tip option. And really, over the course of now 123 minutes or whatever it's been, yeah, I know the internet's been a little rough today. I had it plugged in, so hopefully it fights through here. I've been getting a little thing, but we'll keep fighting through and hopefully it works out. But like over the course of the 123 minutes, we haven't seen the offensive zone time that I think we expected Dallas to get. We haven't seen them be able to kind of take advantage of some of these moments where the game may tilt back in their way. And it did a little bit to a degree We saw some of it, but for the most part, I thought you saw a Vegas team that had a great understanding of what Dallas wants to do to get out of their zone, what they want to do in the neutral zone, what they want to do when they get into the offensive zone. And it's going to be a lot of play along the walls. It's going to be a lot of winning some of these stick battles. It's going to be a lot of finding ways for one-on-one or one-on-two matchups to go Vegas's way from time to time. And now it's very clear that over the course of some of time in this game, and maybe more than we would have felt comfortable with, there were issues. Vegas's dump-ins weren't always as accurate as they needed to be, and they got out sometimes easily there. They weren't winning all of the board battles like they did in a lot of portions of the first game. It wasn't quite as crisp. This was not the brilliant, perfect game from the Golden Knights, and that's why we end up 58 minutes into the game, trailing by a goal and looking at a scoreboard that says that the Golden Knights haven't really attempted all that many shots, haven't been getting pucks to the goal, haven't been really getting too much in front. But to me, if that's your bad game and you're causing turnover after turnover after turnover in the defensive zone, and it's like plays that even as many times Dallas was making plays that the Golden Knights aren't even there and they're passing pucks up the boards right on Golden Knights sticks. Like when that's happening, that just gives you an example. So like I'm trying to think of like other series in the past, and I was ready to come on here today, even had they lost this game, saying, you know what, okay, that's a pushback game. That's a little bit better from Dallas. But I didn't think Dallas was like skating Vegas out of the building. I didn't think that the forecheck just wasn't there, or they weren't able to break out of their zone, or the puck management fell apart. Like there was an issue with kind of just being quite on the same page. Like you need to be really, really on the same page to beat a good goalie and beat a good defense. And Vegas wasn't quite there for a good portion of this game. But if that's the bad game, then the good games are going to look much more like game one, and much more, I think it can even get better than game one. And today, the fact that it's only 2 goals against, and really one of them's a tip off of Theodore's stick into the goal, and the other one's kind of I mean, I'm not going to call it lucky because it's a power play goal. They throw a puck to the front. They have a player there. He makes a good shot. Like there's a lot to that. But Vegas defending this power play has been excellent. They've really not allowed much getting through the neutral zone. And all of these opportunities that are coming are taking forever for them to finally get there. So for me, for the Golden Knights to end up winning this game, being 1 goal behind much of the game, and really I never felt like, and you can, for those of you who are in our Discord, I said it over and over and over again. I think Vegas is winning this game. You can go through some of my tweets. I responded to a couple of different people. I felt like at some point, one of those turnovers is going to inevitably be a problem. And I kind of thought maybe it'll come when the goalie comes out. Maybe it'll come pretty late in this game where they will have that problem. It ends up coming earlier, and I want to talk about that exact play. And then the one that happens in overtime where they had a hard time getting out in overtime and then have a bad change. But first, I want to tell you that this Periscope and all Periscopes are brought to you by Kondler & Associates CPAs, excellent tax experts that can help you with all of your tax needs. Go to KONDLERCPA.com. Tell them SinBin sent you. They'll hook you up with a free consultation. They are fantastic tax experts with any of your tax needs. And trust me, even though tax day is a long way away from right now, it is much easier when tax day comes up if you take care of your taxes earlier. If you have all your books in line and make sure everything is taken care of now, it's way easier come next year. And trust me, you will be thanking me if you take them up on that. Go to ConlerCPA.com. Tell them SinBin sent you. They'll hook you up with a free consultation. They are awesome. You will not regret it. So the goal that changes the game, the goal that gets Vegas back in it, that ties it up, it's real simple. And it's why I'm even more comfortable with this series now. And it's easy to say it 2-0, but trust me, if I thought this was a bad game for the Golden Knights and a horrible game and it goes 2-0, I would tell you, okay, well, now the matchup shift back. Things are going to get a little bit more difficult there. And I do think it is going to be a little bit more difficult in Dallas to a certain degree, but I do feel for the most part, like when these sequences come up and Dallas is consistently showing that they cannot handle it, Vegas is going to eventually get these opportunities and get these goals. So the play is real simple. Eichel picks it up in the middle of the ice, coming out of his own zone. There's not a lot of pressure. They have a nice neutral zone. So they have a pretty good neutral zone setup. They're playing 1-2-2. And for the most part, when they play that neutral zone system, you're not carrying it through. I thought the third period, that's the one portion that scares me about this game. Let me push that off to later because I will talk about that in a little bit. There is something that scares me about this game that we'll have to get to. But he comes up, Eichel gains the red line and understands, all right, we don't have much going. We don't have a lot of momentum forward. And he makes the right decision, not only to dump the puck in, but to put it on goal and to force either a cover or a quick play out to a defenseman who then he has to make the play. And Eichel knows he's going downhill to make that play a little bit more difficult. The puck comes into Ottinger. It's moved off to Suter, and Suter makes a terrible decision. Absolutely horrific. Like, no question, normally that puck rims up the wall and goes out. For some reason, he decides to carry it back underneath the goal line and move it over to Heiskanen, who's not even there, and it goes directly to Barbashev. So Vegas now has a player on the wall. They then have Eichel coming around to that corner, and then Marchessault is eventually going to be coming through. And Marchessault talked about this, in Vegas's style of how they like to forecheck, if they have one on the wall and one down in the corner, the third guy's going to the goal. So where we sit here and we say, okay, that pass is unbelievable from Eichel. How does he possibly know? Well, because that's the system. That's what we have been working towards all game long in this game. Constantly, error after error after error, that the Golden Knights were not quite picking them apart. They were making the errors. They just weren't quite doing what they needed to do with them later. In baseball, you get two guys on base with errors, and then you cannot hit that guy and finish and score those runs. That's what was happening. You're creating these turnovers, and then you're not able to put the final pass together to make it happen. In this particular case, Suter makes the mistake. He puts it down to the corner. Barbashev makes the easy play, just pushing it back along the wall to Eichel. And Eichel, with a player on his back, which is Heiskanen at this point, knows Marchessault's going to the front of the goal. Now, it's very easy to see in the event that Ryan Suter doesn't completely fall asleep. I have no idea what happened on that play. Just an absolute, utter disaster. And we'd be killing him if that play happened backwards. He makes a terrible play to the corner, which just puts the puck on Barbashev's stick, and then completely forgets that there's a guy coming down the middle. Eichel makes a good pass. It's on the wrong side of his stick, fortunately, because I don't think Eichel's necessarily trying to do that. It goes in. Marchessault buries it one time, and Ottinger has absolutely no chance. We've now created an opportunity that there's no way Ottinger's going to get. My point is, that particular play, while it looks as pretty as can be, and it looks like this is exactly what we're trying to do, that play will come eventually, even in a game where the Golden Knights are not crisp, even in a game where the Golden Knights are not quite doing all of the things that they normally do when their forecheck is on. When it does turn those turnovers into chance after chance after chance in front of the goal, that wasn't there today. A lot of the passes back out to the point were kind of not landing right on sticks, or guys weren't finding that tip, or there wasn't a chance in front, or whatever was happening. We end up with all these opportunities that stack up, and we start saying, oh, they're just not playing a good game, where I'm not sure I agree with that, in the fact that they were creating all of these turnovers and it just wasn't quite perfect in that final moment. Then with 2 minutes left in the game, it ends up looking absolutely perfect, even though defensively, that's one of the ones I thought Dallas had covered better than they normally do. The mistake in the first place is a disaster, but then they have a guy directly in the low slot, perfectly positioned to put his stick on the ice and knock that play away. If that happens, maybe we're talking about something different. But I promise you, I'm still talking about offensive zone turnovers. Vegas ate them alive along the boards over and over and over again in this game. And that, to me, is going to create one of two things. Either Dallas is not going to change what they're doing. That's probably what I think is going to happen, because it gets dangerous when you start using the middle of the ice to exit against a team that forechecks like the Golden Knights do. Or they're going to try to make an adjustment. And we'll see. We'll see if they end up making that adjustment. I'm not so sure they will. If it were me, I'm starting to try and find centers coming up the middle of the ice. I'm trying to use my wingers along the edge and have that outlet play to the middle that the Golden Knights have used a lot. Mark Stone hit it a couple of times. Carlson hit it once up the middle where puck comes up the boards, you kind of chip it off into the middle of the ice where if your player's there, it's a nice, easy exit with some control. If it's not, then all of a sudden you've chipped it into the middle and now you've created them an opportunity in the slot. So that's something that's an adjustment that's good that the Golden Knights are going to force them to make, that they're going to now have to figure out a better way to exit. Because when the puck was going in, when they're heading back to the walls, they were not consistent getting the puck out. And so that's why I thought all night long, I thought Vegas is going to get one. It's going to fall eventually because at some point, one of these turnovers is going to happen in the perfect area. And it ended up happening. Eichel makes the good play. Marchessault's got the good rush, and they end up getting it. In overtime, we have something similar where Theodore makes a good pinch up the wall. Now that keeps it in. They don't actually win that play, but what it did is it disrupts the exit from Dallas. And now when they put the puck out, they have a bad change. And all of a sudden, here we are with another opportunity, backdoor, nobody there. Stevenson sticks it home, and we get a big time goal in overtime that, again, is coming because of the errors you're creating them to have when they're forechecking. Now, the issue that I do see a little bit in this is that when the Golden Knights were down a goal and when they were pushing, there was really only one player that was making consistent good plays in this particular game in the neutral zone, and that was Jack Eichel. I thought as the game progressed through that third period, and I'm sure most of us felt the same way, where it's like, all right, we got to kill off this first minute to start the third. And then from there, we should go back to get it in, create these turnovers, finally find one that's going to fall right on the stick, make something happen. What ended up happening and what scares me a little bit, because obviously it seems like the Golden Knights are going to trail pretty often in this series. I don't understand why this keeps happening. Nonetheless, doesn't really scare me because they keep trailing and they keep finding a way to make it happen. But when the Golden Knights were trailing 2-1, and when it started to get later and later and later, and they were slowing the game down, they're icing the puck a little bit more. There's a lot of stick checks that the puck's going out. They're freezing it a little bit more, right, from Ottinger. When that was happening, I thought the Golden Knights started to resort a little bit more to not being able to get to the red line, not being able to get to the blue line and shoot it in, not having their five-man unit come up as consistently. And so that's the part that I look at for Dallas for that last 18 minutes before the mistake happens. And really, it's 17. There's a power play 1 minute in there, but Vegas was real good on the power play or penalty kill on that too. But as it went further, you could see the frustration setting in on basically everyone but Eichel. Eichel was picking the puck up saying, all right, 1-2-2, whatever, I'll skate right through it and I'll figure it out from there. And then he ends up making the play where he does not skate through it and we end up with the goal. So that's how you break that down. But the Stone line, I didn't really see it. The Carlson line, I didn't really see it. The fourth line's putting the puck in, but then they were a little bit behind getting into their forecheck. And now we end up with, and I guess you can make this argument a little bit in the second period as well, you end up with situations where the shots have been suppressed. Vegas is not getting the same number of shots that they're normally used to. They're not getting the same number of opportunities that they're normally used to. And now Ottinger sitting back there with 1 goal allowed on 11 shots after 40-something minutes of this game. That is a symptom of what Dallas does well, and that is concerning. So if they can play that way at even strength when the game is tied, I think Vegas can start to struggle even a little bit more, because when the game is tied, they're going to be more willing to take these chances in the neutral zone and send numbers forward that I did not think that they were doing. You did not see a lot of Heiskanen joining. You did not see a lot of Harley joining the rush later or in that third period, that when the game is tied, if they're able to have that neutral zone setup and the Golden Knights aren't able to break it down the way that they were earlier in the game and the way that they did on the very last play of the last meaningful play of regulation, if that happens, then I can see Now we go back to Dallas. They have better matchups. They're able to get Heiskanen on Eichel a little bit more, on Carlson a little bit more. They're able to kind of shield Colin Miller into a much more offensive role and get his offense going a little bit more. That hasn't been able to happen in this series to this point. Possibly Yanni Hakanpää goes in if he ends up being healthy, and maybe that changes things a little bit to give them a little bit better of matchups in that sense. But for the whole, as long as Vegas doesn't just get eaten alive by that neutral zone, and it did happen for a portion of the game, I'm not all that concerned. Like, that's the one concern that I kind of see at this moment of how this is going and where this could potentially go wrong, is that there was a good stretch where Vegas was not able to play crisply and cleanly. And I think that you have to give Dallas some of the credit. That's the part of saying, like, look, yes, Vegas wasn't quite on their game today, but Dallas was. And that's why they were able to make some of those plays. As far as exiting the zone, I think Golden Knights just have to clean up the puck management a little bit. I don't think it was terrible. I don't think it was horrific, but it's it's definitely something that as we head to a road city, we've seen a little bit more of kind of that starts to snowball a little bit more when you're on the road. We'll see. As far as like special teams, Golden Knights do fine on that today. It's 1-1. They score on the 5-on-3. Again, Eichel drawing the penalty after they already have the penalty. That's a big time play. Gets the 5-on-3, gets them the opportunity. That's certainly good. Like, yeah, I mean, Chris says it well that like Dallas has to win 4 out of 5, very unlikely without significant change. I will agree with that to a certain point in that I don't know that they're going to be able to suddenly go from being a team that uses the wall to exit, making these plays to get out, to suddenly either beating Vegas's forecheck up the wall more often or being able to use the center of the ice. I just don't see that being all that possible. That being said, there is an argument to be made here that there is something of the Colorado series in us now that we see a little bit of what DeBoer was doing, locking up the neutral zone. I'm not as concerned about it because I think the Golden Knights are much more willing to put the puck in deep than they are than Colorado was. They're not as reliant on carrying the puck through. That being said, as I just said a little bit ago, for a good portion of the third period, it wasn't really going that way. Depth wise, I think Golden Knights' defensive depth is kind of showing off a little bit more than the forward depth. I don't think you're getting quite a lot of like. I think that the fourth lines are kind of canceling each other out. There's an argument maybe theirs has been even better. They've, I thought, had the better of the shifts. Vegas's top line, certainly when they have Carlson out against Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski, they've been able to do a good job. I'm interested to see how those matchups are going to change as we get to the road games, because if you can get Domi out there a little bit more against Carlson, maybe they can take advantage of that a little bit more. So we'll see. Is Dallas a vintage playoff Pete conference final team losing once again? I mean, to a degree, yes. To a degree, no, because we have to remember these are two games where the Golden Knights have now won both of these games. However, we're in overtime both times. We're trailing for a good portion of this game and a portion of the first game. So it's not like it's not been the issues that we saw how the Golden Knights went down today, went down when they had DeBoer, right? Like that was, even if we were suppressing shots, even if we were doing these things, the offense just wasn't there. That really hasn't been the case so far for Dallas. They have 5 goals in the 2 games. That's not great. It's not horrible. It's fine. Vegas has what, 2 more, the 2 overtime games. Both games have been tied after the regulation. They've found some big goals in some moments. I think their power play in zone has looked pretty dangerous. It's getting in that's been a challenge. I'm interested to see they have, a trip home, and now we'll see what happens with that. But I don't think this is like the DeBoer team getting beat. I think right now it's just the better teams winning. And the Golden Knights played their better game in game 1 and came out on the right side of it, making it happen and get that win. In game 2, I thought Vegas did enough well, even though, and again, like I thought the players were a little hard on themselves. I thought Cassidy was a little bit hard on them. I don't think this was a terrible game. Like, I just don't think this was a terrible game for the Golden Knights. They did enough that made Dallas struggle and made it difficult. So even when the Golden Knights are not getting a lot of shots, not getting a lot of offensive opportunity, we're still not seeing a ton being generated by Dallas. That's what kind of was good for me and what I felt like that's why I'm pretty confident going up there Vegas will get one. Like maybe they get them both. I would probably bet against that, but I think there's a pretty good shot that they're going to get one. I would imagine they're going to play a good game, one or the other, probably in game 3. Didn't play as good as they thought. We'll see. I'm a little bit nervous in like the okay, well, we got across the line. We didn't have our good game. We don't have to respond the same way, where I feel like they would have had to have that belief if they would have lost this game. Granted, worst case scenario, they don't respond. It's 2-1. Same spot as if they had lost this game and then they did respond. So the next one I think is the toughest one in regards to kind of making sure they keep control of the series. And then you kind of put a little bit pressure on yourself in game 4 if they were to lose game 3. So we'll have to see how that goes. Thanks to the super chats. Got a couple of those. I always appreciate those. Thanks to Kondler and Associate CPAs for sponsoring all of this. Of course, thank you to Vegas Night and Day Heating and Cooling for sending me on the road. Flights in the morning tomorrow, so we'll be there pretty early. I'll see if we can't get something done. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see if we can do a rewatch or something of that sort and see if I find anything different in this game. But again, like I'll wrap up today by basically just saying I don't think that this was the disaster that it looked like on the scoreboard for a little bit of time, on the shot clock for a little bit of time, that we heard some of the players talk about. Like, no, it wasn't the perfect game for the Golden Knights. No, it wasn't everything you wish for in taking control of a series. But Dallas played better. Vegas still did things that made life difficult on Dallas. And eventually that dam broke at the right time. Like at the very end of the game, that dam breaks. Golden Knights get the game tying goal. We go to overtime. And it does seem, at least at this point, like Dallas sucks in overtime and Vegas is really good. So if we can get it there, I think that's a huge benefit. Like what Vegas is now 3-0 and Dallas is now 0-4. Ottinger's never won an overtime game. Like our chances moving forward on that front. So that's all I got for tonight. Thanks again to Kondler Associates CPAs. We will see you in Dallas. I will be there tomorrow, and we will do some more shows. Obviously, goalie interference will be on Wednesday. I'll have to find a place in Dallas to do that one, and we will make that happen. Hopefully they keep playing, keep coming back. 8 comeback wins. Insanity. It's unbelievable. The Golden Knights are 6 wins away from winning the Stanley Cup. It's wild. They're getting really close. This team has a great chance to do it. And again, today just further cements it. Even without their absolute best game, they do enough to make it happen, get this one done. Golden Knights win in overtime again. Chandler Stevenson, the hero. Watch that one on repeat 1,000 times, no doubt about it. Like, that's a fun goal with the open net. The cage is just wide open. He comes flying in. I think we all saw it when that shot goes on net and it kind of spills out the outside. It's like, holy shit, they're about to do it again. It's pretty wild. So very exciting stuff. Golden Knights are up 2-0. We're off to Dallas.